Hey, everybody, it's Allie Cox, and welcome back to the Farm to Fame podcast, Conversations with me, Allie Cox. I have an incredible guest today, Rachel Klataske, who is the first research scientist and bakery ingredient Midwesterner we have had on the podcast, and I could not be more excited. So, Rachel, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Allie. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. Okay, so Rachel has an incredible background, having worked at Kraft and at Post, and really, and I think that you were the first person I ever met. You were a bakery science and management major at Kansas State. I know that might sound and feel very normal to you, but to a lot of us out in like the specialty agriculture world, especially in California or in Florida, that is not normal. So I've always loved knowing that about you. And can you just share, how did you decide to choose that major from just like out of the gates?
Yeah, so it's a major that is unique to K-State. It's the only 4-year degree in bakery science in the country. So that's why it's both a bit unusual, but then you're right. Once you're in this world, it's very normal to me and to my fellow classmates and alumni of the program. But it's a program that my dad also did, and he spent his career in the baking industry. And so I did the degree. I haven't exactly spent my degree or my career in the baking industry. I kind of went more general food science and product development, but that was how I got my start.
It's so great. And I just like love how it informs probably a lot of your thinking, because you are a big, I know this about you. You're a big thinker. You have big dreams. You ask a lot of like what if questions. And I just love that, like, as you're thinking as the marketing and business development person for New Life Markets, where you have been for almost 11 years, like, and thinking about like new paths for sorghum, like it's like rooted in a very fundamentally sound way of like farming and science and nutrition and different and I mean, I love talking to you about use cases for ingredients. It's something that particularly in row crops, it's something that like is a unique conversation I think I only have with you, and it's so exciting. So again, thank you.
It's funny. I was thinking back to my degree, and like as a freshman, they give you a class called Principles of Milling. So yes, you go very deep, very fast, and you get a tiny flour mill and you get to make wheat flour. And that kind of sets the stage for the next 4 years, honestly. So you do dive very deep into ingredient functionality. And so, yeah, I do think that's probably was ingrained into my like brain as a food developer very early.
That's so great. That is so great. And I definitely am going to be sending this podcast episode to our rice client, who has an incredible mill and is doing a lot of ingredient work as well. So
they already know K-State. I talked with him. Okay, he's hired several milling science grads. Yes.
Perfect. Yes. That's all I need to know. We're amazing. Yes. Okay. So I was hoping that you, Rachel, could tell us a little bit about New Life Market and why, frankly, sorghum has such a special place in your heart and has really become, I mean, whenever we have conversations, it's like it is professional passion. And I love your approach to kind of those what if questions. But I would just love to know, like, how did sorghum sort of like become like your front runner sort of ingredient in the Midwest?
Yeah, so I would say I think people think of wheat as the front runner, at least in Kansas, which I definitely agree with. But sorghum has become like an amazing companion crop to wheat and corn for especially Western Kansas farmers. So sorghum has been grown in Kansas for probably 150 years, give or take, a really long time, for as long as wheat. And our New Life Market was started by a sorghum farmer. So that's why it became the whole reason for the company to be, is that he saw this gap that we were growing a lot of sorghum, but not using it in food products. And looking at sorghum globally, it's a grain that's been around for thousands of years. So it definitely gains ancient grain status, just like many grains. Its origins were in Africa and what is now Egypt, and it's still it's the fifth most consumed grain worldwide. So
Wow.
when you look at those are two very interesting things. We grow a lot, but we don't eat it, but it can be consumed by humans, and it makes amazing food products. And it was just kind of one of those, uh, we our our food system in general, we kind of relied on the same types of crops and grains for a very long time, especially in the US. And sorghum just wasn't one of them that was put in that toolkit. So
Mm.
that's what New Life Market kind of set out to do, was bring sorghum to the forefront, get it into more food products, educate consumers,
Mhm.
along with the Sorghum Checkoff, who's an amazing industry partner for education and awareness. So that's really the why sorghum. And I was myself personally, I was just kind of lucky to find the company at the right time in my career. And it
Mm.
allowed me to come back to Kansas, having grown up here, and discover this crop that I didn't know anything about either, even though I was from Kansas.
Mhm.
Um, my grandpa still farms mostly wheat and soybean, but a lot of Kansas farmers will say, oh, sorghum? Oh, you mean Milo? And yes, we kind of do. It's the same crop. Milo is kind of the more casual name for it. But
Okay.
even my grandpa would, when I first started with the company, he said, oh yeah, when we were kids, it was really fun to take a stalk of sorghum, put it on the hot tractor engine, and watch it pop right off the plant, off the stalk. So
I
it's
love that.
kind of, I think we've started referring to sorghum as just kind of this hidden secret, or this, the best grain you've never heard of, because it's still so kind of underutilized. But especially in the last year, there's been so much momentum in the market that I'm so excited about the future, in the near future.
Amazing. And I mean, like an original regenerative crop, it also sounds
Yes,
like, right?
definitely. So farmers have always considered it the crop that would grow when nothing else would. In the
Okay.
year that there was drought and the corn would fail, the sorghum would not. But the only problem was that it just wasn't really a valued crop. It wasn't your cash crop like wheat.
Mhm.
So um, that's really why we've put so much emphasis into building the market for sorghum and
Mhm.
giving farmers an outlet for that grain that they've grown for a very long time.
Mhm. Amazing. So when you mentioned that sorghum was like it was really kind of the owner of New Life, which I believe is Earl.
Yep,
When Earl
Earl,
really
Lynn Romer.
decided,
Yep.
yeah, what a visionary, right?
Yes.
And when he decided that we wanted to kind of find food markets and a food home for this,
hmm
what was sorghum primarily being used for before that?
So most of it, and still today, is exported to other countries.
Mm,
Um, China's a big purchaser of U.S. sorghum. They
okay.
actually use it in distillation processes.
Mm,
If it does stay in the U.S., like many grains, it's used for animal feed, it's used for ethanol, it's used for other kind of industrial products. But
mhm,
yeah, the food, I think when I started 10 years ago, the checkoff said, oh, we think maybe 1% to 2% of the sorghum that's grown in the US makes it into a food product. We
mm,
think we're closer to 7 to 10% now.
okay.
So it's shifted, for sure. But we're always looking, yeah, to grow awareness, to educate consumers. We
Mhm,
love talking with food companies that are hearing about sorghum and wondering if they could use it in their food products,
right.
and working with them to figure that out.
Yeah. So, Rachel, when you're doing that, I'm sure these are a lot of gluten-free based conversations,
hmm hmm
right? And like what do you think is sorghum's like greatest gluten-free competitor?
Oh, probably rice. Yeah, rice and corn. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, and I think too. I don't like to think of it as competition. I think a lot of gluten-free grains work well in concert with each
Mhm.
other, in
Yes.
combination, especially in bakery. There's very few bakery products that rely on just one grain and
Okay.
gluten-free. It's this very complex, you're trying to replace one grain, wheat, which has this amazing, gluten matrix that helps it make bread and has for thousands
Mm.
of years. And so to do gluten free, I think bakery is the hardest thing you can do. And so
Mhm.
it's it's often that you're relying on a unique combination of grains and other ingredients to help make that product successful.
Amazing. And then just for like friends who aren't in the Midwest, checkoff is really the same as what we call a commodity board. So it's a
Yes.
necessity.
Yes.
And I just have to tell you, I think it is so beautiful to hear you talking so affectionately about your checkoff partner. Like, have you, I mean, truly, and I think just having that, being armed with the data that you have, like, made some movement in the last 10 years from 1 to 2% to 7 to 10.
Yes.
Can you give us a sense of like, what does the market look like? Like, how many like mills are there? How many brands are there? Do you mind sharing just a little bit about that?
Yeah, the general market for sorghum.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So, as far as we know, New Life Market is the only dedicated sorghum mill in the US. So we're the only ones that are, all we produce is sorghum. But there are
Okay.
several other companies that have sorghum as a grain in their portfolio. So they're more diversified grain partners. You know, this would be companies like Ardent Mills or Bay State. So
Yep.
they're gonna provide, you know, sorghum as one of many grains to a food company, or put it into a blend of grains, which is often a very helpful way to source something.
Yeah.
And as far as brands using sorghum, I do think that, you know, sorghum and, you know, when we started saying, oh, wait, maybe this could be part of food, that really dovetailed with gluten-free rising in awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So this was maybe 20 years ago, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we started searching for grains that were gluten-free. We started searching for ingredients that were gluten-free, and we started putting an emphasis on formulating products that were gluten-free.
Mm-hmm.
I think, unfortunately, I think we settled for a lot of, I mean, we as a food industry, I think we settled a bit and we thought products, well, this is good enough. It's gluten-free. It's going to be okay. But there were texture issues. There were moisture issues. They maybe weren't the most nutritionally dense products because they relied on a lot of starches instead of a lot of whole grains.
Mm-hmm.
And I think as gluten-free has not gone away, it's definitely not going anywhere. I think at one point, we thought maybe it would go away.
No,
gluten-free.
What about all of my?
I don't.
What about my celiac son? That's
Well,
not going. That's
no,
not
I know, but I think, well, and so coming from, and I in the bakery industry, in the commercial baking bread industry, right? I think there were a lot of like, it's okay. This is like the Atkins diet or something, right? Or like if you think back to those like things that did peak, and you would formulate products that were the South Beach diet and like, you know, Atkins friendly. If you think about that stuff now, you're like, okay, that was did not have longevity and staying power. I think we know now that gluten-free does. And so it's been around long enough that we're no longer going to say we're going to accept good enough for our gluten-free consumers. We're going to try really hard to make nutritionally dense, very good products. And now, because of that, we have companies like Kellanova finally launching a gluten-free Cheez-It that they can't keep on the shelf. And that product does contain whole grain sorghum flour. So I think now we're like,
I know exactly why they can't keep it on the shelf. It's because of me.
Yeah.
It is me. And like I am not kidding you. It's only sold in 2 stores in my town. And I am like, I'm hiding it in the back of my freezer for my kids, like, because I already have like 5 boxes in the pantry. It is so good, and just yes to that. So
yes, but I think it's a very, very powerful example of the fact that gluten-free is not going anywhere for sure. It's something that, but it's also a very good product, you know. So I think it's just so interesting. And I think that's what has helped sorghum now kind of with its staying power and resurgence too, is there's a lot more emphasis on developing nutritionally dense gluten-free foods. And sorghum can be a very good tool in that sense.
Sure.
Yes.
No, so I mean, not to age either of us, but about 20 years ago when you were in college getting your bakery science degree, was gluten-free and was like gluten-free products and gluten replacements, did that have a place in the curriculum even?
No, not at all. I try to remember back, because now it does. And I get to go, like, sometimes I get to guest lecture or go, talk for
'Cause you're
20
an
minutes about
expert and so
sorghum.
smart
And I,
and number one.
yes, but it's so fun. And I'm so grateful. And I mean, we have partnership projects. We have one right now with K-State where they're working on a sorghum muffin mix for the Kansas Department of Education that'll hopefully
Oh,
make it into the school system. So
yeah,
yeah, they're amazing partners. And yes, it's in the curriculum now. But yeah, it is a very good, like, yeah, 20 years ago, it wasn't. And it
right.
was, even 10 years ago, it was barely on our radar. I mean, so my first job and where I was before here was at Post Foods, the cereal company. So I worked on Fruity Pebbles and Cocoa Pebbles, which of course are gluten-free products because they are made with rice. You have to be careful. It's easier now, but I mean, even back in the day, like Rice Krispies wasn't gluten-free because they used barley malt syrup. So
Mhm.
there's a lot, like, now we know like where all those hidden gluten things are. And for the most part, I think we're doing a really good job at making it easy for consumers to find gluten-free products. But there were no gluten-free claims on Pebbles during the time I was at Post. I remember going through that process, and you have to start, it's like we always knew, I think, like, nuts are an allergen, right? So you have to be really careful about nuts if you're in a plant of any sort that's using nuts and you're running other products. So thinking of wheat that way and other gluten containing grains was very new to the food industry,
Mhm.
so that it was interesting to be there at that time, that was just entering
Mhm.
our consciousness as a food company.
Yeah. Um, this is all just fascinating, and again, I definitely have, like, a personal sort of a connection to all of
Mhm.
this. This is
I
my
think everyone does now. I think you could not find someone that doesn't have a family member or a friend that, isn't seeking out gluten-free products for one reason or another.
Okay,
So,
well, I mean, should we talk about that? Why do we need gluten-free products? Is ingredient integrity something that, like, I mean, not to be, like, political or controversial, but, like, is ingredient integrity part of it, or are people just not are people just more, like, just demanding to feel better? Like, I guess, like, I don't really know. I've always sort of, been kinda battled that inside.
oh, yeah, I think this is a whole conversation in and of itself. But yeah, I do think maybe it's just that I like that way of thinking of it, that we're demanding to feel better. We're more in tune with our bodies. We're
Mhm.
understanding more that the foods that we choose have an impact on how we feel, and
Right.
there's more choice than ever before,
Mhm.
right? And
Mhm.
it's I just came off of a week at IFT First last
Mhm.
week, which is a big food technology conference in
Yep.
Chicago, and
Yep.
I had several conversations with people that I think the food industry is in a really interesting place right now. It's like the spectrum is extremely wide, from
Mhm.
very innovative, very high tech products and
Mhm.
the use of AI to develop products and how technology is interfacing with the food industry. But then you have this way opposite end of the spectrum where we're like clean label, no ultra processed foods, and maybe that's more where the consumer is. And I think there's just a lot of competing, like, ideas and forces at play,
Mhm.
which I
Mhm.
think is kind of fun and exciting because you
Mhm.
have to figure out what's meaningful, what matters,
Mhm.
and what do consumers want. And there's
Yeah.
more choices and options than ever with food products right now.
Yeah. So, Rachel, I think just like the kind of like a little bit like of a last question here is like,
Yeah.
if you are a home baker and you are very curious about baking more with sorghum or not even or using it for cooking, not even just baking, where's the best place to go? Like, where would you recommend that a consumer sort of like get started?
Yeah. So if you're wanting to source sorghum flour, Bob's Red Mill is a good company to look to.
Okay.
They also make several blends. They have a pancake and waffle blend right now is at Costco that contains sorghum flour. Um,
And
a
is that
lot of
gluten-free? Is that
it is,
all?
yes, yes, yep,
Okay, off I
yeah,
go. Off I go to Costco. Got it.
yep, yep. And King Arthur's a good one. I think they use some sorghum. The Krusty's baking mixes, as far as I know. Yeah, if you start looking, especially things that are gluten-free, what I always tell people, if they say, I don't know what sorghum is, I've never had it. I say that's probably not true, especially if you've eaten gluten-free products like bread or used baking mixes that are gluten-free. You're maybe just not reading the ingredient line. But
Mhm.
I do think we are ingredient line readers for the most part,
Mhm.
especially people with restrictions or sensitivities. But it's just that no one's really been shouting out sorghum as a hero ingredient in
Mhm.
those types of products. That's
Mhm.
definitely changing,
Mhm.
which if I can give one last plug for a brand, a company, it's Cobb Foods, who's
Yes.
doing popped sorghum and sorghum tortilla chips,
Mhm.
and has an amazing Jess Davidoff, the founder, and Novak Djokovic, her co-founder, who does an amazing job um, with marketing and social media. They're such a fun follow, and they talk a lot about sorghum. And so they just started that company because her two sons have a corn allergy. And so
Mhm.
she first went down this road of trying to
Mhm.
formulate snack products without corn, which is actually very hard. Corn's in a
Mhm.
lot of things.
Yes.
And then she discovered sorghum, and she's extremely passionate about it. And so they've been an amazing, amazing partner for the sorghum industry and helping raise awareness and connect to consumers in a really fun way
Yeah.
and tell them about the grain with game, they call it, which I love.
I'm here for
So,
it. Well,
yes.
I love this, and, yes, when we were transitioning my son, off of gluten, when he had his early celiac, he also had a corn allergy.
Mhm,
I think that those are very common to go together.
mhm,
So, those were tough days. So,
mhm,
the more innovation that continues to happen in sorghum and in rice, for the gluten-free, for the actual celiac community
mhm,
is something I am so passionate about for
mhm.
sure. Well, Rachel, you are a star and I appreciate you. Thank you for coming on the Farm to Fame podcast. Thank you for introducing a new crop type to a lot of our audience members. We haven't talked about sorghum yet. So thank you and keep up the great work. And if somebody wants to follow you and New Life Along, where would they go?
LinkedIn's the best place. Yeah. We're posting the most there. Yeah.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you again, Rachel, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you so